Mom, work more now. Do you want some play? Katie, want play? You all done? And so the more we can respond, even if it's just narrating back, even if we're not sure what it is that they're asking of us exactly, yes, play. She is willing to play though. There we go, play. So I press play, I'm narrating, and I'm also offering the toy to her simultaneously. And that's a good one to kind of multitask on. A little bit of housekeeping as we continue our introductions here. Um, this is being recorded today. Aside from my video being a little bit blurry, the slides should be clear for you all. If they're not, if you have any trouble with sound, then hopping out and coming back in Chrome or Safari tends to work best. But we will be recording all of this, and you'll get a follow-up as well in case you need to miss or anything comes up. On the agenda today are our introductions, which we're continuing right now, and then we'll chat through the keys to button teaching, modeling first words, and target training. This is an interactive discussion, so feel free to ask questions throughout in the chat. In the chat, it's just a little bit easier for me to keep track of everything, make sure that I answer everybody fully, and we can talk about it in the most relevant part of today's presentation. Then I'll share additional resources, and we'll have more time for Q&A to talk through. So if I haven't addressed something yet, or you have a follow-up, or it's easier to just talk through a question, we've got time for that at the end as well. Mira, welcome to you and your 13-year-old mixed breed Gurney. Allie and Riley, Golden Doodle, welcome from Minnesota. Freya, welcome from Iceland. 3 cats, 19-year-old and 2 2-year-old cats. Dog trainer, but don't have a dog at the moment. I love that you also appreciate cats, though. My name is Morgan Krug. I'm a certified dog behavior consultant who's been working professionally with animals for going on 18 years now. And despite being a dog behavior consultant and having the most experience with dogs, cats have really kind of opened my world to the buttons even further than my border collie did. Jasper, my blind cat, was who kind of became my best known presser, though she's unfortunately since passed of leukemia. And I now have Katie, who was making requests in the background there, who's mostly blind. She's a 1-year-old little rescue black cat. And then I also have, I don't know if you can hear him sneezing in the background, but Bernie, a 1-year-old tuxedo boy, who is right here. And we also have Calvin with us from FluentPet, one of the coordinators for the community and with customer service, an amazing part of just what we're able to offer to you all, and has been working with Jason, his 1-year-old cat, who's been using buttons for about 8 months now, and they're up to 17 buttons and doing a phenomenal job together. All right, and a little bit more about us as a company. While Alexander Rossi and Christina Hunger were using buttons previously with their learners, FluentPet is the original button teaching system. So what does that mean? That means our mission is to figure out how to best teach dogs, cats, and the other animals we share this planet with how to talk or an approximation of it. And we believe that pulling this off will take a village, a community that can develop and share button teaching tips and tricks and work together to discover the most successful button teaching approaches. So that is where you all come in. Our success in this mission entirely depends on your success with your learners. And the more of us who are able to progress, the faster we can figure out just how far all this can go. And in case you're wondering how far all this can actually go, we think this video really helps paint a picture of what's possible, and you'll probably recognize Alexis and Bunny.
The foundation for getting started with buttons is just a desire to connect. I can't remember the exact order, but I think she pressed stranger mad, and I was like, what does that mean? And then ouch paw. And she came over to me and she put her left paw in my hand, and I was like, okay. And I looked between her toes and she had a foxtail stuck between her toes.
This was the stranger in her paw. She's got a mat between her toes.
He was able to request medication multiple times after having an eye procedure with eyes and help or some combination of that. And it's not all medical related. There's lots of fun examples too. One of my favorite early ones was with Scout, a Catahoula mix, who would repeatedly combine water and bone. Took us a little while to figure out what she wanted, but it was ice cubes. And so she got an ice cube button and was able to advocate for herself in that way. So it really is amazing how creative they can be, even with a limited vocabulary. And don't worry, we will definitely talk about how to support blind learners and learners of all different abilities, depending on what you all need, what you're interested in. But regardless, step one is going to be modeling. And before you have your buttons, you can be doing this verbally. Talk to them all the time, especially for a learner who doesn't have their sight. They might already be much more attuned to what it is that you're saying. And our older learners, a lot of times, have quite a bit of existing vocabulary with us. There's quite a few seniors in y'all's households from your descriptions. So you do have the advantage of typically a pretty extensive vocabulary. And for those of you who speak multiple languages, that's fantastic. You can pick and choose either whatever you say most, or you can adjust depending on if you want to avoid homonyms or things sounding too similar to each other. So keep track of how you're talking to them. Try to be specific with your language and think about what the majority of the household uses to be as consistent as possible. And since modeling is how we teach our learners what these concepts actually mean, early on especially, the more you can say yes to their presses, the better. We want to capture their excitement, their enthusiasm around the board, and teach them that this is an amazing tool that they now have available to them. So how do we begin? Once you have your buttons set up, and anybody who's still waiting, no worries at all. Once they arrive, you've already done your homework of keeping track of what it is that you're saying to them. And we'll talk about picking first buttons on the next couple slides. And so once you're ready to have them set up, 3 simple steps. First, press that button. The more immediately you can follow through and the more frequently you can follow through on it, the better. If you can ideally model it 10 to 15 times a day, that's fantastic. Step 2, follow through. Show them the meaning of the word by making it happen. This is where setting ourselves up for success with something that's easy to follow through on those 10 to 15 times tends to be ideal. And then step 3 is repeat. Go back to step 1, repeat, repeat, repeat. It's a lot of repetition, especially early on while we're helping them understand that buttons have a consistent meaning no matter what and who is pressing them or when. Hi, Bernie. Hi, Bernie. We see you. Bernie pressing his name button behind me there. And I'm not sure if it was audible, but before he pressed Bernie, and he is a button flopper, he primarily presses with his shoulder, which is why he's laying down on them. But he pressed neighbor first. I'm not sure if it was an accident or if he was just looking for attention. But how do you respond to neighbor, right? Especially early on. I could, in theory, text a neighbor and be like, do you want to come over? Maybe there's a neighbor cat. Maybe there's an animal around. There's so many options with the concept of neighbor. That's not very concrete. It's not very actionable. How would I model that 10 to 15 times, right? So that's just a concept that we're working on otherwise. But none of my learners are new at this point. When they were, neighbor wasn't on the board. How do you respond? So think about what's going to be easy for you to press, immediately follow through on with something actionable and repeatable throughout the day. So here's a video illustrating that. This is with Kelly and her learner Delmer that we're visiting at my house, but this is with them at the beginning of their button teaching journey in their home, the first 24 hours that they had buttons down. So you can see just how much repetition.
Puzzle. Outside. 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 Puzzle. Outside. Pet. Puzzle. Outside. Outside. Pet. Puzzle. Puzzle.
Yes. Puzzle. More puzzle?
Puzzle. Puzzle. Outside. 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 Puzzle. Outside. Puzzle. Outside. Outside. Outside.
So again, it's a lot of repetition, especially early on. We're helping them understand that the buttons have a consistent outcome, whether it's us pressing them pressing, depending on the time of day, the outcome we want to be as similar as possible. And that's why those accidental presses are great learning opportunities. It helps them realize that they can press themselves and that the outcome is still consistent. And I have a note at the bottom of the slide there that learners are all going to take different amounts of time before pressing. You might be surprised for those who have multi-learner households who picks it up first. They can absolutely still be learning from each other. And even if they don't seem interested, still go ahead, press the button and follow through, model for them and help pique their interest, get them, to understand like, oh, good things happen around that board. The more you can hang out nearby, the better. So the more centrally located, easy for you to model, easy for your learner to get to, typically, the better. But know that the speed in which they pick up buttons and start pressing has no bearing on their long-term success. Some of our most successful pressers these days had weeks to months before they showed any interest in the buttons, including Milo, the Aussie Doodle, Elsie, Mary Robinette Kowal's cat, Calico Cat, and just staying with it, pressing, following through. Cash the Golden, similar, was not interested initially. So stick with it, and they often will surprise us. All right, so in addition to modeling throughout the day, thinking about some rapid modeling or rapid pairing, helping them understand that the button has, again, that consistent outcome. And we can do it with some pretty quick pairing to get those 10 to 15 reps in. So maybe you're not home throughout the day, just pushing the button, following through on something that's valuable to them. In this case, it's a snack button that Kelly's working on with Nushka, a different learner. So there's Delmer's more advanced board, but this is not something that Nushka's using yet. So Kelly's pressing snack. She's actually pressing it with the food to drive home that food equals, or that the button press equals food. Hearing snack means food is appearing. She's also tossing the food a little bit away to keep it interesting, to keep it engaging. The more we can gamify things and keep it fun, the better, right? But then we're also helping by having her turn back to Kelly, turn back to the button and reiterating, hey, this is where the good stuff happens. And the more you do these reps, and it can be literally 30 seconds a day of just rapidly modeling something that's interesting to them. The more you do this, it gets to the point where you can stop, wait a second, and then our learners will go over and start pressing instead for you. You okay, Bernie? You poor little dude. Give me one moment because he is hacking and I want to make sure he's okay. Sweet boy. Sweet boy. I'll let you start perusing the slide. Are we okay? Bernie, ouch? Bernie, ouch? Yeah? Yeah, Bernie, ouch? And so it's hopefully rare that you get opportunities to verbally model or model something like an ouch button if you have an ouch button. It's hopefully rare, but take advantage of those opportunities. So in this case, it was more so hacking, sneezing, reverse sneezing, something going on with him. But I still kind of lump that under ouch anyway. It's up to you how you want to how you want to call different things like that. Play. I guess we're feeling well enough, huh, bud? You want to play? Yeah. Yes, play. Okay. But checking in with them. And anytime you're not feeling well, you can also model ouch that way as well. I think they know when we're faking it. So there used to be advice to like pretend to stub your toe and model ouch. But I unfortunately have chronic pain. And so I'm able to, narrate the ouch that I'm feeling more often than not. That gets a bit more advanced, but while you have the opportunity, take advantage of it. Huh. I'm glad you're okay though, bud. All right, so how do we choose our first buttons and words? Ouch is a bit advanced and negative potential connotations. We don't want them to think that the board is not something that they would want to press. So I'm not recommending you start with ouch, but you can always be verbally narrating that. But how do we choose what buttons and words to actually put on the board? We want to start with 2 or 3 buttons, more than one, to help them realize that different buttons mean different things. And our starting buttons ideally should be motivating and meaningful to your individual learner, should be easy and convenient to model immediately, and concrete or actionable. We don't want to start with abstract concepts like neighbor, because that is a challenge to follow through on, but to have it be repeatable. And when you think about them learning how to use the soundboard itself is an abstract tool. So we want to establish a strong foundation with easy to understand, easy to take action on buttons first, and then we can build out to these more complex and complicated concepts, advanced concepts for them. And so the setting yourself up for success refers to the easier it is for you to say yes to and follow through, typically, the better. So we have common examples at the bottom here, like play, or you can put a specific toy on the board if that makes more sense. For my Border Collie Adora, we did start with ball specifically because ball is life for her, incredibly motivating. But for my cats, when they arrived as kittens, began with pets, play, and eat. General play for them because they didn't show any preference. Now, Bernie, my one-eyed guy, he's much more action oriented, whereas Katie is much more food motivated, as you heard from her food requests. Now Bernie is starting to use some specific toy buttons and ask for specific types of play. So it's up to you. If you start general, you can always get specific. And if you start specific, you can always get general with their buttons as well. Outside is on here as a common starting button, but don't feel pressured to start with outside. It's not always the best choice for your household. If you live on the 10th floor, it's not going to be easy and convenient for you to model it immediately. If your learner already has their own pet door, if they're an indoor only learner, it might not be very motivating or meaningful for them. So think about what's easily repeatable. And outside, it might be incredibly motivating to your learners, but think about what you can also work on close to the board. You press outside and then you go away from it, right? So that doesn't lend to as much repeatability as a play button does, but then you're able to engage right there at the board, or again, those food buttons that we talked about in the rapid modeling as well. And so it's up to you. There's no pressure to start with a food button. In fact, some of you all might have literature with your buttons. I know mine came with literature 4.5 years ago that explicitly said not to start with food buttons. We've since rescinded that advice. Initially, we were concerned that they would just become obsessive about a food button, that that's all they'd be interested in, that they would think that all of the buttons equaled food and was just a trick for that. But instead, what we found was that not giving them a food button just made them get more creative about other ways to ask for food. It didn't stop them from wanting food. It just limited their ways to ask for it. And that was really frustrating for some of them. And it also ignored that food isn't the top motivator for all of our learners. I was so adamant about not starting with a food button for my Border Collie Adora that I began with ball and outside. Well, guess what? She likes way more than food. She's a working line Border Collie. She came home to do competition agility. She is far more interested in play and activities than she is food. So I actually added a food button to help calm her down around her buttons because she was too excited. She was flailing and just so amped. She's like, yes, this gets me all the things that I want. So in her case, I actually had to add food to calm her down. So there are times where food might be inappropriate. If your learner's already on a diet and it's going to cause frustration, you're going to say no a lot. I would not recommend adding a food button in that case. Or if you have pretty intense resource guarding in your household, if you think it's going to lead to conflict between your learners, though you could always have duplicate boards or duplicate buttons. We have more than one play button because play is so valuable to both Bernie the cat and Adora the dog that they have technically their own, so that they're not competing. There are multiple mom buttons to get my attention and multiple food buttons as well. So you can always think about the board as abundance. And for those of you who are modeling from multiple learners, if one presses, I like to give the opportunity for everyone to partake. That way it's not a limited resource. It's not something that they need to compete with each other around. It's, again, abundance. If one presses, everyone that wants to and can safely partake is able to do so. Sometimes that's helpful to think about as well. And whether you start with a general eat or snack or food or more specific is up to you. We began with a general eat so that I could model it when I was eating, so that, when anybody else was eating in the household, I could also narrate while they were. And then it counted for meal times, for training sessions, for puzzles, for the wet food, the kibble, all this the more specific things that we've now broken it into. And I discovered, thanks to the buttons, that my mostly blind cat, Katie, loves pumpkin as a meal topper. So she has a pumpkin button to request that specifically. And she loved using it to remind, especially whenever I'm traveling, a pet sitter, like, I don't have what I want in my bowl. I need this. And it has actually helped make her more regular. It's improved her comfort in life, having access to that. So I love a food button, obviously. I'm a big fan. If anybody has questions about specifics or anything here, let us know. We're happy to chat through. If you're debating between any buttons, or if you already started with buttons and you think it would be helpful for others to know what worked for you, I'd love to hear it. I've seen where folks have gotten creative with things like cat TV to start off with, because that's incredibly motivating, easy to turn on for a cat to watch like a YouTube video. For those who are sighted, obviously that's a bit less popular in my household, but that's a great creative option that I would not have thought of if not for you all. So, and then something affiliative like pets or scratches, brush, cuddles together, something like that tends to be a popular option too. We've started with one before knowing this, as in started with a different food button. Yeah, it's up to you. You can always also adjust the name of something. You can re-record it to be a more general if you want, or to be specific if you want. I think change is inevitable with the buttons, especially when we think about it as a lifelong communication skill. We moved over the summer and the board came with and had to add things and subtract things. And that's normal. Just model any changes that you make. Try not to overwhelm them. Don't change everything at once if you can help it. And I like them to have the option of being present while I'm making board adjustments. This is their tool, right? I don't want them coming in from outside or waking up from a nap and being like, whoa, everything looks, feels, smells different, right? I want them to have the opportunity to observe. And they may express some unhappiness or press all done or oops or different or something like that as you're making those adjustments. And so we have the question, I need help with teaching my cat buttons for food or water. Any advice? Yeah, so lots and lots of pairing them together. Food that can be with anything that's safe for them to eat to keep it nice and general and to motivate them in different ways. Water is an interesting one in that it's hit or miss as to how motivating it is. It tends to be more motivating for cats on average than for dogs. Some really like to tell you that they want fresh water, that they want uh, different water or in a different spot, or you to turn on a faucet or something like that. If they're not that into water, it might not be a great starter button. And you can always add it later on. We do have a water button as well. And I'm glad that we have a water button because Katie began to combine wet food and water to refer to her freeze-dried food with water in it, which we don't have a specific button for at this point. She coined her own button combo for that. So that is also a good reminder, because even I sometimes am like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm just adding all these food buttons. But that's what Katie's interested in. That's what she's motivated by. And it's allowing her to explore new concepts, come up with unique phrases, and experiment in ways that's interesting to her. And that is now lending itself to other buttons and other combinations as well. Yeah, so lots and lots of repetition. Water, if you do keep that one, then fill the water bowl, turn on the fountain, whatever it is there. Food, have it be lots of different motivating options there. Candace will talk about names in just a minute. Excellent question. Then we have the question, how long can it take until it clicks that the buttons have meaning? And Calvin said, it took us a good 6 weeks for my learner, Jason, to realize that the buttons had value and to start interacting with them. And I'd say it took about the same for Bernie. He would watch when others would press, but he wasn't particularly interested until he accidentally stepped on the outside button. And that's not one that I would intentionally start with a cat for, because for him, he needs to be geared up and supervised. And it's like a minimum of a 1 hour excursion. But he was so motivated by it. I knew it was accidental, but I was like, you know what? All right, yes, let's go outside, and geared him up. And for the next week, I committed to every single outside press that he did. Even though it was tough, I did not set myself up for success. It was a challenge to follow through on them. That was what was motivating to him. And so keeping something like that as a kind of Hail Mary option in your kind of in your back pocket to be able to motivate them can be really good. And some people will save a food button as that option as well. And Candace said took us about 1 month. Okay. Good to know. And that also tells me that you will probably be very ready for those name buttons um, when we talk about that in abstract concepts in a couple slides. She said, I got my buttons today and started with a treat button. As Dizzy knows, she must do something for a treat, and she got it in about 15 minutes of repetition. Not perfect, but she knows it now. That's great. Yeah. I'll do this for a while and then add a couple more next week. Is that the best way? Honestly, Sue, if you already have another button or two ready, like if you've got them, I would go ahead and start with more than one. By having the 2 or 3 buttons that we're starting with, you're able to show them that different buttons affect different outcomes, that it's not just food, that, one could get you play, one can get you access to outside or snuggles, whatever it is that is motivating to them. So I would go ahead and plan on adding at least one more, especially since you're doing such a great job with that first one. And you can keep working on the treat button as kind of your rapid modeling one, but then have the others that you press and then follow through on whenever relevant. Linda asked, should treat and food be separate buttons? Excellent question. And this is totally up to you. So this is where keeping track of how you usually talk to them helps. That's where I realized for us that we can use a general eat. And for me, the general eat is for, do you want eat treat? And then I might narrate, treat versus want eat wet food versus eat pumpkin, kibble, or, all the combination of those things. So I have the action of eat, and then I'm verbally narrating the specifics with it. So it's up to you. You could also have a general food, and then that has, treat as an umbrella underneath of it, in addition to their actual meals or training sessions or puzzles. Puzzle being some kind of food toy that takes them longer to work through. I know that doesn't always translate to everyone. And here's an example of one of the cat puzzles that we like to use. So it's just a little like mousy puzzle that you can put kibble in. And I added some cork so that there's a little bit of resistance, so it just doesn't immediately dump all of the kibble out, and it takes them longer to bat around and kind of work for a puzzle there. And puzzle is a great option for you to say yes to, but it doesn't have to be, like a single kibble yes, or single treat. You're like, oh my gosh, I gotta talk to my boss, I gotta work. Give them a puzzle that might buy you, at least 20, 30 minutes, a frozen Kong, something that is a little bit longer to work through. Hopefully, does that help thinking about the categories here? And again, you can always adjust it. Full disclosure, our first food-related button was hungry on Jasper's board because I would say to her first thing, are you hungry? Or anytime she was meowing at me, are you hungry? But then I realized want hungry didn't really work when I started combining things. And so I re-recorded that button from hungry to the general eat instead. So then I could say want eat once we added a want button. Oh, great question about the cat puzzle. Calvin, if you have a moment, I know you're usually on top of things like that, but if not, I can also pull one up in a little bit. Yeah, there's lots of great cat puzzle options. And Candace asked, we have the neutral colored soundboard, 3 hexagons. Are the colorful ones more effective? When we order more, wondering if we should stay with that or add more color. That's a really great question. And that gets into a little bit of soundboard layout stuff. Totally up to you. For me, I do try to work with a lot of contrast. I like to add different colors, have different shapes. Right. And I'm going to apologize about my not great screen quality with the blurring here, but I don't know if you can kind of see, hi, Katie, our soundboard layout, as well as the cat's jungle gym of boxes behind me. So we've got small islands. I know it's blurry. I'm sorry, y'all. But notice how each island is kind of a little bit of a different shape. Here's the cat island right here. Hi, Katie. Oh, you want Scoop? You want Scoop? All right, I can pick you up. Scoop soon, yes. So we've got small islands. That way each island can kind of have its own grouping. And I've got a yoga mat underneath of some of the islands just so that it's nice and grippy. But these are all of the different kind of people options, all in one island versus we've got actions, activities in another. I've got senses on another hex tile with body parts planned on the one next to it. So like smell, hear, see, that sort of thing. So that's, again, where it's helpful for me anyway to be thinking about categories as well as, you know, what groupings, but you can always adjust those. You can always move them. And as meticulously as we try to plan things out, hi, Katie Cat, come here, you. You're just gonna, as meticulously as we try to plan things out. So I mentioned we have a here button, H-E-A-R, like a sensory on our sensory tile there. My guys also use it for here, H-E-R-E as in present on as a location. It's on a completely different island than the location buttons are. And yet, because it's a homonym, they use it both ways. So even if we meticulously plan categories, only model it a certain way, they will often start to use buttons in other ways, in surprising ways, in ways that they generalize that we hadn't considered previously. So try not to get too hung up on layout, on the order of everything. As long as you know where to find things and your learner knows where to find things, that's most important. And you can do it to your aesthetics. Some people have fully monochromatic boards because that's what looks best with their household layout and floor plan and everything. Or for me, I go with visual contrast. So I have different colors next to each other, but I have low vision learners. So that's why I'm trying to think about that. And I'm also thinking about within each individual hex tile, I've got a little bit of a different layout in terms of the order in which the buttons are in relation to each other. And I also have used negative space to differentiate. But they're using muscle memory. They're probably using smell as well to differentiate between buttons. So that's why we don't want to be changing things too much, too soon, too fast. We don't want to be overwhelming them. We want to be modeling those differences. But we can think of it as similar to us learning how to type on a keyboard. At first, you're looking at each key going really slowly, but with time, practice, and patience, you can go much, much faster. You can pick up your entire laptop, take it wherever, and you still know how to type on your keyboard, right? That's the point that they get to with their soundboards. And that's why we're able to take the boards on vacation if you want, no pressure. But I know my learners get so much more comfortable when we arrive somewhere new. As soon as that soundboard is out, they're like, oh, great, we're somewhere new, but we can still talk like usual. And yes, Katie is totally spamming for attention here. Hi, Katie. They're also, they have not gotten their adventure walks for the past couple days with the weather here, and we are all suffering for it. I say that lovingly. All right, hopefully that helps with thinking about layout. So for those of you who are just beginning, 3 buttons, 3 hex tiles, go. You can always change the layout until you commit to a location. You can also just pick up the hex tiles, move them wherever. You know, it can be a little island that you carry with. You know, if you know you're going to be snuggled up on the couch for the rest of the night, hi, Katie. If you know you're going to be snuggled up on the couch for the rest of the night, bring that cuddle button with you, snuggle together, pets, whatever it is, and just press that while you're there. Set yourself up for success. Make it easy. Don't overcomplicate things if you can help it. And Even if you have a small learner, I don't like to put more than 2 buttons per hex tile, just so that they're not overwhelmed at first. Yeah, even when my kittens were itty bitty when they first came home, I still didn't do more than 2 buttons per hex tile. You can always fill them in more down the line. All right, so some of you, it sounds like, are ready to start teaching abstract concepts, or you will be soon. When you're introducing abstract concepts, modeling them in opposing pairs so that you can contrast them to one another tends to help clear things up a bit for them. When you think about more versus all done, yes versus no, now versus later, with the first half of those, you can take a bit more concrete action. Yes, more eat now as you give them more food. Yes, more outside now as you go outside. The now, the yes, the more, again, you can kind of take action, show them an outcome for. In contrast, no, it's raining outside. Outside all done. We'll go later. And then nothing happens right now, right? That's a lot harder for them to understand. So adding them in pairs that you can model in contrast, in opposition to one another, clears it up a bit more. So hence these pairs. And which pair you start with, totally up to you. That's where observing how you're already talking to your learners to narrow it down can give you a clue as to what to do. And I did find with my border collie early on that more and all done, though she already knew those, all done meant the end of fun. It was really frustrating for her. She escalated in her frustration once I added more and all done on the board. And I figured out that now and later was the better choice for her, because later means yes, just not right now. So be thinking about things like that even. And again, I share that to indicate another time when I very quickly realized, oh, that's actually not the ideal choice. Or a few days in after putting it down, like, oh, I see now. These are all live and learn. And there is nuance when it comes to this. There's general best practices that we're going through, but you know your learner and your household best. So follow your gut. And if at any point you're like, I don't think this is working, sure, sometimes we need to give it another couple days, but if you can see that your learner is frustrated, it's okay to undo whatever it is you just did or re-record or whatever. Again, just model any changes that you make. Some other abstract concepts can include emotions. So thinking about contrasts like a positive emotion of happy in opposition to mad or sad or frustrated. Some kind of frustration button seems important for a lot of our learners. And ouch, which I mentioned earlier, if you don't already have emotion buttons on the board, ouch starts to be used for a kind of catch-all frustration for a lot of our learners. I found that out the hard way as well. So be at least modeling ouch around pain, discomfort specifically, and have some kind of frustration or mad, sad, some kind of button like that you're, or at least narrating as well to them once you're ready to have that ouch button on the board. Time, so again, now and later, but could also be tomorrow versus today, now versus soon versus later, or before, and kind of parsing out concepts that way. And then names. So we already had the excellent question about when to add names. And I do tend to add names fairly early on if it seems like the learners are interested in talking about them. Not initially, right? Because we still want to get the concrete actionable ones. But once you're getting independent presses from your learner, you might be ready for some names. With Katie, she was pressing the eat button repeatedly while staring me down, and she had every option in her food bowl. We had already done a training session. Her puzzle was full, and she's staring me down and pressing eat. She wanted me to get up and come over to her. It was an attention-seeking press or a connection-seeking press, not an eat press in that case. That didn't tell me, though, that she didn't know what she was doing. That told me that she needed a new button. So sometimes when you see them pressing and expecting a different outcome, watch for what they're expecting. Watch for their body language. They might be telling you, in fact, that they want something else to talk about or need something else to talk about. And so she got a mom button as a result to get my attention, to get me up and over to her because she knew that I would say yes to her food presses consistently. And so she's like, well, might as well get mom up this way. So mom was very helpful for her. And I waited a while to add a Bernie button onto the board, Part of that was because we took a while to land a name for him after he came home. But as soon as I added one for him, he loves to press it. He pressed it already today while I was teaching as well. He loves to announce himself to get attention that way. And Katie will press Bernie to get him to come over, and vice versa. He'll press the Katie button to get her to come over. I'm not sure if it's just because they've had buttons since kittenhood or because of the lower vision that they like to communicate with the buttons. But yeah, they really enjoy interacting in that way. So working on something like a tea party. And this is where the food buttons can be really helpful too. I practiced mom eat. I'd take a bite of something, chicken, that's safe for everybody to have. Katie eat, give her a piece of chicken. Bernie eat, Ash eat, my little senior mini American Shepherd. Adora eat, and work on names, waiting their turn, modeling for everybody, narrating, as well as pushing the button if there's a corresponding button. And Calvin just added a link to that concept as well. Thank you. And if this is helpful and you want to dive deeper into any of these abstract concepts, we also have mentorship calls. These are free ongoing calls with our guides who have had proven success with their learners and want to share how they did it. So there's usually a quick presentation and then like another at least 30 minutes of discussion, going through questions, that sort of thing. So would love to have you. I'll show you where to find those and RSVP if interested. Oh, and Calvin just added a link too. Of course. Thank you, Calvin. All right. So how do you make this happen? If you're modeling consistently, you've chosen buttons that are motivating. A lot of times they'll start pressing independently, but not always. Sometimes they need target training to help them connect the dots, build their confidence, a sense of agency around the buttons, realizing that they can press. Or maybe they're trying to press and they're just hitting the side. They could use a little more precision as you add more buttons in. They're having some mispresses. Target training can help with all of this and developing that eye-paw or eye-nose coordination, depending on how they naturally prefer to press. Or in Bernie's case, yeah, single eye to shoulder coordination there, which he's gotten pretty accurate overall. We're adding a few links in the chat that might be helpful. They're on the screen here as well. The first one is with Alexis and Bunny. And this one, a shortcut that you can do from this, and apologies again that I am blurry, y'all, just in case anybody's just tuning in, it's not you, it's sadly me and my rural internet. But if you already have a high five or a nose touch or a shake paw cue like that with your learner, you can totally pop the button out of the hex tile, just cue them to give you a high five, and then follow through. In this case, the play button. So I'd pick up a toy and engage with my learner in that way. If it's food, toss them a cookie, or just give them the cookie, whichever. Pair that together. Same thing. They know how to do a nose touch. Cue them to do a nose touch, and then follow through. Same thing, shake or paw. Obviously, it being up in your hand looks different than it being in a hex tile. So gradually work on moving it back into the hex tile, back down to the floor. Help them get that muscle memory, whether it's paw, nose, whichever. But that's a really great, easy shortcut. And for me, I do try to pretty much exclusively model when the buttons first come home or when the learner first comes home. Because in my case, I have buttons already set up. So it's usually the learner coming into an already established board. So I want to model exclusively. I want to pique their interest and get them to be like, whoa, what are all these great things happening every time you're over near these buttons? And then as soon as they start trying to figure out, can I do that? How do I do that? Whether it's napping on or near the board, staring it down, like laser focus, thinking that they might be able to activate it, or especially if you start to see them batting at the sides, which is a very natural behavior for cats, right? That's how they explore their world. That's how they play with things. Getting the weight shift to press, that's a lot harder for them. So we can also be working on target training to get that weight shift piece. So once you see that interest, them trying to activate the button, when in doubt, help them out. I don't want them frustrated. I don't want them giving up on trying to activate it. So they're nosing, pawing it, whatever, push the button, not their body, push the button. So they get that tactile feedback of it moving underneath of their paw or nose or whatever other body part they're pressing with. Some are sitting on the buttons to reinforce that, press, follow through. When in doubt, help them out. That way they're not getting frustrated. They're not giving up and walking away from the board. And the Justin Bieber the cat and the cat school options there are both great for cats or other small learners that need help with that weight shift specifically. But again, when in doubt, help them out. Go ahead and press for them. And then we can work up to them being more independent. All right, I have a couple more resources for you all, and then we'll dive into any additional questions that you all have, though I know you've had a lot of fantastic ones so far. So be on the lookout for a follow-up email that will have a link to a self-study learning center for you all. But most of all, community.fluent.pet is a great resource of everything that has been put together for the last more than 4.5 years now of people's experiences. So under Start Button Teaching in the Welcome area, here's step-by-step instructions if you are that type of learner. FAQs, if you've got a question in the middle of the night, you could also always post it, but there's a chance that somebody else has already had that question, and so it might be in the FAQs. There's 41 of them because some of them are A and B, so there's more than that. So lots of great info. Under the Bootcamp section, Button Bootcamp, that's where you found today's event. You can switch upcoming to past, and then you can find recordings of previous calls. And you're also welcome to sign up for another bootcamp if that would be helpful. You're always welcome to attend another. Or if you have a household member that you'd like to attend, send them our way. Now, mentorship calls. Mentioned these a bit earlier. So these are kind of our more in-depth topics. So we've got Help Me with Modeling, Help Me Teach My Cat, Surviving the Spamming Stage, Independent Pressing, First Words. Lots of great options here. So go ahead and RSVP to one that works for you, and we'd love to have you. And again, they're taught by different guides who have had success. Resources, so many great options here. The Learning Center, paw targeting tutorial, button targeting tutorials that were linked there, soundboard planning tool, if that would be helpful for you. Lots of different great resources and examples here. Discussion, same thing. More updates, any questions that you have, latest sales, that sort of thing, and chat, same thing. You can always put updates there. And then under discussion, show off your soundboard. I know there are some questions about layouts. If you want to get inspired, see kind of that soundboard planning tool in action. Here's another layout, the Toffee soundboard. Here's another kind of island style cat board. Wall mount options, and I like to highlight Sasha's board that you saw in the soundboard planner there too, just because it's a really great space-saving design. Even though it's tucked into the corner, it doesn't have to be in the middle of kind of between two rooms the way ours is behind me here. Sasha's is nice, compact, tucked in the corner, but there's still enough room for her learners to get behind the board and see her while pressing. Our learners like to make eye contact. They like to watch us while pressing. They like to know that we're about to respond. So thinking about that, having it laid out with the option for them to do so tends to be really helpful. All right, y'all. One more resource to share, and then we'll dive into additional questions. We also have the Let's Get Them Pressing course. It just started last night, but it's not too late to join. There's a couple of slots left. It's a 4-week cohort-based class. There's live coaching as well as asynchronous materials. You can always catch the recording of last night, but it's taught by Diane of Neurodog Training and Alexis with Bunny. And it's so much fun. I helped contribute to some of the cat materials as well. You can use course 25 for 25% off if interested. Here's a lot of the great topics that are covered. If you are realizing that you need more buttons or hex tiles or anything like that for your crew, you can also use this code for the next 24 hours for 15% off everything at fluent.pet. And then if you have any feedback for us, always looking to improve, add that as well. All right, and I'm going to catch up on the chat. And I know there was the question as well about blind cats specifically too. Truly, I do think in some ways they have the vocab advantage, as we were talking about, similar to older learners that have more of an ear for all the things that we've been saying to them. I know for Jasper, especially without her vision, I would guide her with my voice a lot. And so I think that just helped her see the value in the buttons a lot sooner than it does for other more sighted cats. Sometimes it takes them a little bit more convincing to see the value in the buttons. But once they realize what the buttons can do for them, they're all about it. They're all bought in, and it scaffolds, it builds so beautifully on itself. Cats in general, but especially low vision cats, I find benefit from an elevated board as long as they have a safe way to get up there. You can see our ramp up to now a feeding station. It's elevated because of my resource guarding dogs. That way everybody can have their, safe separate zones. But that was initially where we started off with a soundboard. It just got too big for that space and got moved onto the floor and is now being integrated into the main board instead. So I love teaching cats in an elevated space where they can feel safe, where they have their own time to process and maneuver around, because a lot of them like to circle the board to kind of navigate, to plan out how they're going to press or to orient, depending, or all of the above. Textures can be really helpful as scent soakers, as well as kind of a kitty braille option, or not just kitty braille for whoever is interested in it. Most of the textured buttons are carpet taped to the floor, but you can kind of see on this one at least that the mom button has a furniture protector on it. So it's got kind of that extra little bit of texture, and the felt or the cork, Velcro, or the soft side of Velcro, velvet, different textures like that I've put on also help absorb scent really well. In general, our learners are more geared, even our sighted ones are more geared for distance and movement. So I think it can only help to add scent or texture or something like that. If you think about the F and J keys on a QWERTY keyboard anyway, they have a little notch so that you can immediately find where to put your fingers, right? I try to use shape as well as layout and texture to create kind of anchor buttons for my learners that way, to differentiate between a little bit. So I'm, again, with all of our learners, dogs, cats, even fully sighted, lacking that visual acuity. They don't have as great distinguishing up close. Just having the buttons a little bit spaced out, not too overwhelming, and again, modeling extensively any of those changes that you make can set them up for success. Then any tips for a cat with a short attention span? Calvin added his great tutorial there, but keep it short. No harm in keeping it short. Those 30 seconds, 60-second rapid modeling sessions are fantastic ways to get them engaged, keep them engaged, and leave them wanting more. That way it's not like, time to come over to the soundboard. They're like, yes, I get to push buttons. And I want them to want to independently interact with the buttons and the board as well. Any additional questions that y'all have for us while we're together? I don't see any typing. Feel free to raise your hand if I know we are about out of time and already over. So I very much appreciate you all being here, your focus, all of your great questions so far. Go figure, my internet, at least on my end, looks like it's trying to behave finally now that we're at the tail end. But thank you all for your patience with my blurry screen and with us chatting through. I know some of you all are more advanced than others. So thank you for being here. Thank you, Calvin, for all of your hard work. I really appreciate everyone. Yeah, please don't be strangers. Let us know how we can help. I can't wait to follow along with your button teaching journeys. I would say good luck, but you don't need luck. You know your learner in your household best. You've got this. Just have fun with it. Lots of repetition. You've got it.